America great again.
RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show.
Good evening, everyone. And as always, welcome back. Yes, that's right. It is time for another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. Hope everybody's having a great day. We had a long vet appointment earlier today, so I have put together an interesting show nonetheless. I think I saw some conversation in the chat questioning whether or not the invasion of Quetta was still going on. It most certainly is. It's not any better. And we're definitely going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about President Trump's cabinet meeting from earlier today, and a couple of things related to election security. And, of course, the commie takeover of the Democrat Party. So if you haven't yet and you're in the chat, do me a favor, hit that like button. That would be awesome. You can also, of course, share the show. That would be a big help. All right, so do me a favor, sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn, and we're going to be right back after this.
Science proves that a healthy immune system is the body's first defense against the smallest of ailments to the most catastrophic. Coriolus Versicolor is the most sought-after, all-natural supplement for both humans and pets to help boost the immune system. There are over 400 studies worldwide on its effectiveness in humans, including Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and now from the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine. Together, we can help reverse this terrible tide now plaguing your loved ones and give them the immune-boosting supplements that they need.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Hope you guys are having a good day. All right. First of all, I want to talk about a story that I haven't really had a chance to dive into, and that is the dead body that was found at the home of a spouse of a member of Congress. That's right. You probably know about this, but you don't know the specifics because we've only just begun to learn exactly what's going on. So a young girl, 18-year-old woman, was found dead at the home of the spouse of Democrat Representative Ayanna Pressley. Now, it was identified last week as 18-year-old Yoselani Marte. Now, we did not know exactly what the cause of death was, but certainly it was suspicious circumstances. Now, we did know that this was a rental property, it sounded like, that Ayanna Pressley's husband was in possession of. He is a convicted felon, and we've reported on him in a number of ways in the past because there have been some suspicious contracts that he and his companies have gained through the state. And we don't know much more other than that. But what we do now know is that the medical examiner has ruled that young Yoselani Marte has, in fact, been murdered. She is the victim of a homicide. Now, this death investigation has been on for, most of the month, and this body was discovered on the property. We're not exactly certain if it was in the property, if it was on the grounds of the property. So this could be a random murder and then the body was dumped there, or it could have a connection to Conan Harris, who is Ayanna Presley's husband. Now, they do not reside at this property, but the victim's family have been speaking out a little bit, and they do believe that her death is the result of domestic violence, which would seem to indicate that the murderer is somebody who is known to her. Now, there is a GoFundMe for the family, and they said, "With shattered hearts, I share the unimaginable loss of my beloved daughter, Yoselani, who tragically lost her life at just 18 years old as a result of domestic violence. No words can truly express the pain of losing someone so young with so many dreams, hopes, and milestones still ahead of her. Yoselani was deeply loved by her family, friends, and everyone whose lives she touched. Her kindness, beautiful spirit, and bright future will never be forgotten." Now, they stopped short of actually identifying somebody that they believe could be responsible. But in this GoFundMe, they say domestic violence has taken a beautiful young life far too soon. We hope that through the love and support of this community, my family can find comfort in knowing we are not facing this tragedy alone. So it would be nice if we got some more information. Was she married? Was she just in a domestic partnership? Was she living at the property that was owned by Conan Harris? Now, officers who responded to the home found her body on July 18th, and they found her to be suffering from an apparent gunshot wound. She was pronounced dead at the scene. And now that we know this was a homicide and not some self-inflicted gunshot wound, they will undoubtedly be looking for someone to pin this crime on. I'm most interested to see if there is some sort of a connection to Conan Harris, because it appears that there is some type of criminal element that this man surrounds himself with, whether it is just petty crime or the sort of fraud that you tend to see Democrats being involved in. I'm interested to know if maybe there is an organized criminal element surrounding this man, and if we can definitely say that that had something to do with it. Anyways, as we learn more, of course, I will report. Now, we also have some updates on Anthony Fauci. There was a little bit of drama, apparently, as Anthony Fauci left the hearing the other day that he refused to answer any questions for. Of course, he did answer questions in a manner of speaking by opening with a statement and touching on a bunch of different subjects that, of course, the committee themselves wanted to ask him about before pleading the fifth 111 times. Of course, he had no right to plead the fifth because he had the ultimate pardon, the best pardon that you could ever possibly hope for, spanning anything and everything over a 10-year period. But what we are now learning is that as Anthony Fauci was leaving the hearing, apparently he dropped an F-bomb, much like Senator Bernie Moreno, and apparently was complaining to his wife about the suffering that he was forced to endure at the hands of GOP lawmakers during the course of that hearing. Now, I don't know what Anthony Fauci has to complain about personally. As we all know, he is a multimillionaire. He was already a multimillionaire before the pandemic, but he got even richer as a result of the pandemic. I don't know what he expected. Maybe he just thought that he was going to get away with it and everybody was going to fawn over him for the rest of his life. But as the former NIAID director and quite literally the face of America's disastrous COVID response, I mean, any reasonably intelligent individual could have determined at some point America was likely to turn on him. So what we do also know is that both Senator Joni Ernst and it would appear that Rand Paul are both going to be seeking contempt of Congress charges. Sounds like Rand is going to go directly to the DOJ. Joni Ernst is going to go the typical route through the congressional methods. But as I mentioned, he invoked the Fifth Amendment, not only in his opening statement, but throughout the course of his subpoenaed time on the floor. And of course, he did not have the legal right to do so. This, of course, also really came to a head with Bernie Moreno telling him, who the F do you think you are? Noah Hawley also called him out, saying during the pandemic, you got rich. You got rich while Americans were dying. Your net worth is over $12 million. You got over $1 million in cash awards during COVID. Of course, he is still making money to this day. But let's take a look at this from the New York Post. Dr. Anthony Fauci was overheard blowing off steam after a brutal day on Capitol Hill. angrily venting to his wife, Christine Grady, about how someone was shouting at him. Now, Anthony and his wife have been married for 41 years, and they were spotted Wednesday evening on a walk near their $2.4 million home in a very upscale neighborhood of Washington, D.C. I believe we also may have video of that event here, or perhaps this is from another event. Maybe Anthony Fauci likes to walk outside of his home. He lives in a very safe neighborhood, of course, in Washington, D.C. Fox News actually approached him, and they attempted to ask him some questions. You know, hey, do you regret the way you handled the hearing, how you pled the fifth so much? Is there anything you would do different? But Anthony Fauci scuttled away like the cockroach he is. Let's take a listen. Okay, short interaction, but you can see Tony right here walking in his Tony neighborhood. Oh, he's got the police on his side.
Dr. Fauci, do you regret the way you handled the hearing, pleading the fifth so much? Is there anything you would do differently on COVID, sir?
I would invest more. Well, now we know what Anthony Fauci's home looks like. Yes. So yesterday I mentioned also the sort of ridiculous response from the left-wing media. That was on full display as Lawrence O'Donnell basically wrote a love letter to Dr. Anthony Fauci and then read it live on the air on MS Now. In this instance on his show, he was very determined to essentially make Anthony Fauci out to be the saint that everyone believed him to be. Well, we didn't, but a lot of people believed him to be a saint during the course of the pandemic. I mean, they went so far as to make, beatifications of him. Lawrence O'Donnell jumped to Anthony Fauci's defense amid this Senate hearing, and he had quite a bit to say. I believe we actually have a clip. I'm just going to play the clip because, no, I guess I don't have a. Here it is. Here it is.
Bernie Moreno's target in that hearing today was a man who has done more in service to this country and the world than every senator in that room and the entire current United States Senate combined.
I love you, Tony. Listen, Lawrence, Tony's not going to sleep with you. Okay? I don't know really what you're expecting to get out of this. But anyways, he basically went on to say that Republican senators disgraced themselves. I think the only disgrace was Dr. Anthony Fauci. That is so funny. Stop the hammering. Hold on. I should play that. It's been a long time since I've played that. That was so good. Okay, hold on. Lawrence O'Donnell, stop the hammering. This is so good. Oh, my God. Okay. Oh, come on. I spelled it incorrectly. Lawrence O'Donnell, stop the hammering. Come on. Come on. Does nobody have this clip on Twitter? Wow. Nobody has this clip on Twitter. You're got to be kidding me. Well, let me take out Lawrence O'Donnell's name. I'll just do stop the hammering. No. Wow. What is the deal? Let me say Lawrence O'Donnell freak out. Let me see that. Here we go. No, this is not it. This is just some other thing. This is him breathlessly supporting every Democrat criminal you can possibly find. I love you, Tony. Wow, there is no Lawrence O'Donnell clip on X. I can't believe that. After all this time, maybe Lawrence O'Donnell has got them all taken down. I misspelled hammering. Lawrence O'Donnell, HAMMERING. Stop the hammering. Here we go. No. That's not it. That's not it. That's not it. Lawrence O'Donnell. Stop the hammering. No, it's still not here. I don't know. If somebody can find that stupid clip, now I really want to see it. I love to see Lawrence O'Donnell quite literally freaking out on air. Okay. All right, let's talk about Spain, because Spain is probably going to take up a good bulk of today's show. President Trump commented on the ongoing situation there today during his cabinet meeting, and he said, it looks like an invasion. What's really crazy to me is that this is honestly what our border looked like under Joe Biden. And it is quite literally a cautionary tale of what could happen if we were to backslide.
I saw Spain yesterday, and I watched the catastrophe that took place. It looks like an invasion of a country by hundreds of thousands of people. And that same thing's going to happen to us if the Republicans don't get elected, except worse, much bigger, much easier to get into.
One more time,
despite the fact that we have built thousands of miles of wall, which I said we were going to do, but we didn't have that. Forget it. We have the safest border in the world. If we're not in office, our country will be invaded at levels that made Spain look small time. And when I watched it, I said, I'm going to say it because I knew you were going to be at Camp David. And I say, that's going to be a talking point for the midterms. Because when you look at what happened to Spain, they don't know what to do. And it's happening again today. They're coming in by the tens of thousands. They're just invading the country. And what that is weak law, bad management, but very liberal law. They passed a couple of laws, and people read. People are smart. They read from other countries, and they swam that 3-mile swim or however they got in, but nobody's seen anything like it. That will look good compared to what's going to happen to the United States. Ooh. The biggest thing, the worst thing that Biden did is allowing 25 million people into our country, because many of those people are criminals. They're murderers. A lot of them, 11,888. A lot of them are gone now. We got them out. But they allowed people to come into this country that you can't allow to come into a country.
All right. So Teresa Pagano, Trisha, and my lovely wife, Lisa, all were able to grab the clips. I've got Teresa's first because it came in first. Lawrence O'Donnell. Oh. Okay.
Why am I losing this? What's going on? Why am I losing this? Why don't I have sound? Someone's pressing buttons and turning my sound off. Who's asking for a Labor Day rundown in my ear? Someone in that control room is out of control. God damn it. You have insanity in my earpiece. Every time we go to a SOT, there's a woman talking in my ear about something that has nothing to do with what we're doing here. Stop the hammering out there. Who's got a hammer? Where is it? Where's the hammer? Is it on the... Go up on the other floor. Somebody go up there and stop the hammering. Stop the hammering. Call Phil Griffin. I don't care who the fuck you have to call. Stop the hammering. Empty out the goddamn control room and find out where this is going on. It's either there or out there somewhere. Out of control.
It's got to be somewhere.
Christ. Crazy sound coming in my ear. This stupid hammering. I told you why I wanted those words cut. It just sucks. It sucks to be out here with this out of control. Any thing can come into my ear. Things. How do you say this guy's last name?
Just losing it. Oh, it's so good. So good. All right. So if you'll notice, and it was just pointed out by BDR1776, thank you for teeing this up for me. He says, anybody notice those people going into Spain only have the clothes on their back, so they will be stealing everything that they need. That is exactly what is happening, and it's exactly how I plan to open up this segment. The Moroccan Muslims are not only invading Ceuta and Melilla, But because they are coming in with nothing, of course, they need to get something. Yesterday, we saw them breaking into people's homes. Today, because it's day 2 and they have not left, they are now breaking into stores and they are taking whatever they want. And of course, the Spanish police are essentially neutered. They cannot do anything because there are far more of these Moroccan invaders. So, yes, as if you're at all confused as to why this is happening, the Spanish government announced that they were going to be providing asylum for up to 600,000 migrants, right? And so immediately 1.2 million of them applied, and then tens of thousands of them immediately streamed across the border. And what if they don't have the clothes on their back? At least some of them are bringing weapons with them. Here is one of them walking down the street with a katana. There are a lot of images that are coming out from the people of Ceuta who are showing just how bad this is. There is definitely a couple of clips that I know are probably going to get me in trouble over on YouTube, but since I'm not monetized, it doesn't really matter. So be prepared, because the next image is actually going to show someone getting jabbed in the neck. This is only the first of what is probably soon to be many stabbings and murders at the hands of these Moroccan invaders. And right there, you can see this guy getting popped in the neck, and he's down. They immediately rush in to provide some form of limited EMT services, but if you get stabbed in the neck, there's not going to be a whole hell of a lot that they're going to be able to do for you. Again, this video is taken by one of the luckier residents of Ceuta who happen to live up on a second-floor apartment. The citizens of Ceuta are fighting back in what limited capacity they can. Here we have yet another one of these Moroccan invaders climbing up a ladder and smashing the window of the apartment of somebody who lives on a second floor. You can see some of these people have got what appear to be storm shutters or maybe break-in shutters, but that's not going to save this particular resident. Now, if it was me, I would wait until they got the window open, and then I would just do a running, flying kick and make sure that they dropped into the ground. Now, here also, we have one of these Moroccan invaders taking a dump on the street, because of course they will. They have no bathrooms. They are just running across the border, swimming across the border. And this is what we see anytime you have third world invaders coming in and invading your country. So the wave of illegal migrants into this tiny little principality of Spain, Ceuta, is driven by illicit content that appears to be shared on social media and messaging platforms. A lot of people were wondering, why did they choose this one day to do it? Of course, you had a number of things that coincided. You had the announcement of the asylum. You had the release of thousands of people from the prisons by the King of Morocco. And apparently, you had a series of no fewer than 5 Facebook groups who were coordinating all of this. Now, if you're at all confused about the geography here, Spain is up here in Europe. Africa is right here below it. Morocco is the northernmost point right here. And then you've got the Strait of Gibraltar, which goes right between Spain and Morocco. Now, you have this little peninsula of Morocco, which is owned by Spain. That's Ceuta. And then you have another little peninsula that is off to the west, off to the east, which is Melilla. So this is an autonomous Spanish enclave that is technically located in North Africa, and it's surrounded on all sides by Morocco and then the Mediterranean Sea. And this is undoubtedly the worst migrant crisis that I've seen in my time on Earth. It's the worst that has ever happened in Europe, not because you have, the action itself taking place, but just how many are coming over all at the same time. It is quite literally overwhelming for the Spanish authorities, and thousands. They have estimated, yesterday we saw between 50 to 80,000. Now they're estimating up to or more than 100,000 migrants have actually made it into Melilla and Ceuta. This is a fairly dramatic and not slowing down situation. It seems to be getting exponentially worse, not only because of these Facebook groups, which are directing people where to go, but because the Spanish police have lost total control of the border itself. Yesterday, it was announced that the Spanish military and the civil defense were going to be coming in to assist. That's not doing very much. I've got some video of that as well. But according to the Spanish outlets that are reporting on this and also reporting on these Facebook groups, this is not the first time this has happened. There was another wave of this that happened back in 2021. At that time, it was organized through WhatsApp groups and also Instagram and TikTok. But now you've got Facebook groups and new TikTok accounts. Now, there are apparently hundreds of these TikTok accounts. Some of them are deleted. Some of them have been able to slip through, but they show the migrants themselves teaching people how to actually go into Ceuta, how they breach under the water, how they breach over the wall. And there are just detailed explanations of, what to bring. Like you can see here on the beach is littered with just thousands of apparent cheap inner tubes that people have used to swim across the border, and then they just leave them right there on the beach. And they also have recommended amounts that each group should have with them so that they can successfully overpower any guards that might be at the border, how to protect your phone from water damage during the journey. So then you've got a way to communicate once you get over there. And the creators are obviously aware that this is totally illegal, but they don't care. And if they get their accounts deleted, they're just opening additional accounts. Ironically, their descriptions states that they do not encourage immigration. But when you go through all of the posts, they're obviously encouraging immigration. That's probably an effort for them to get around any type of ban evasion. So the accounts reportedly placed the beaches at the Moroccan town of Findek, known in Spanish as Castellanos, as the starting point of the journey into Spain. This is the closest town to Ceuta. And the chosen starting point, as El Español said, is dependent on the tide and the fog conditions. And you can see here on this map, this town in Morocco is the closest. You've got a bit of a buffer zone, and then you've got the border, and then you've got Ceuta right here on the other side. Now, just also, I know I described it, but here is an actual map so that you can just get an idea of it. This is the Strait of Gibraltar. This is Spain. And then right here on the tip of Morocco is Ceuta. And then way over here, you've got Melilla. This Melilla looks like it's probably in an even worse position than Ceuta because it is surrounded on all sides by the Moroccan country. And then over here, at least you've got ocean seas on either sides of it. So theoretically, they could have the Spanish Navy come out and maybe surround it. So detailed entry points as thousands of illegal migrants storm the border. All of this is followed by the letter El Español wrote. These people's journeys on social media goes viral. They get thousands of views and comments from the moment they start preparing until they succeed. Now, TikTok and Instagram are reportedly deleting these accounts, but then, of course, they are rapidly replaced. There is a pull effect goal of encouraging other migrants, so then they make their way in as well. And then you probably have all sorts of leftists all around the world who are championing these people and telling them, you know, hey, let's go, let's go. El Español also pointed out that the contents feature a song by a Moroccan artist, Khalid El Paisano, which, according to Spanish outlets, has become the anthem of the migrants. The song's Spanish language lyrics heavily feature themes of immigration from Morocco into Spain. Now, equally concerning is the use of WhatsApp, which is spreading messages among these migrants. It also allows them to continue talking as long as they have internet. The Spanish newspaper ABC cites testimonies allegedly obtained by Spanish officers, reporting that some of the migrants allege that a simple pass it on message was the call of action to swim to Ceuta. These sources explain that the operation was carried out by Maghreb-based groups, which did not include people from other parts of Africa. And according to ABC, the use of messaging platforms to organize a migrant wave into Ceuta echoes events that also occurred in 2024. At that time, messages were spreading like wildfire among private chat groups to coordinate dates and time, information, instructions, and other logistical details to bypass Spanish police checkpoints. I would not be surprised at all if there is also a larger form of coordination going on with the help of NGOs and 501c3 migrant support organizations. Now, I had mentioned those Facebook groups. We can see here, Data Republican has found these and put them together so that people could investigate them. But as a result of her investigation, they've actually now been taken down. But of course, much like the much like the TikTok and the Instagram groups, I would imagine that those are probably going to be up in new forms. Now, the 5 groups that she was able to identify had as many as 230,000 members in those groups. So, you know, we're not at the height of migrants coming into Ceuta. We're probably somewhere near the floor as it stands right now. Now, if you want to see some real suicidal empathy, I want you to see this video. So this is a Spanish woman standing on the Ceuta side of the border, and she is quite literally filming all of these Moroccan men coming across the border, and she is like, you know, welcoming them and like waving them on, get over here, get over here. This is the exact same type of suicidal empathy that we see here in the United States of America. This, in my opinion, is why liberal white women should probably not have the power to vote, because they all gleefully champion the entry of these people who will then later murder and rape them. And of course, you know, I mean, this is a scantily clad Spanish woman. I mean, how long do you think it's going to take these Moroccan men to decide that, you know, they want to do more than just look? Now, there's nothing per se wrong with her attire. However, you put a pretty Christian woman in front of a horde of invading Muslim migrants, and of course, they immediately see her as a piece of meat because she's not Muslim, so it becomes permissible to do whatever they want with her. And that is a fairly scary proposition. Now, this is also extremely scary because, as I said, the people of Ceuta are fighting back in what limited way they can. But the police are essentially powerless to stop these people from coming across the border. They're also quite literally powerless to arrest these people. In fact, they've told the residents of Ceuta that they can't arrest them because they're migrants and they're not citizens of Spain. And They've also announced that they are not going to send any of the children home. So every minor migrant that has come across the border now essentially automatically gets asylum. Now, I don't know how they plan to send the men, the adults, back, but they have said that they plan to, and the government of Morocco has said, we will take them back, but good luck getting them rounded up. Now, here in this video, the Spanish residents of Ceuta are obviously very upset. This is a highly distressing situation, and they get into a slight altercation with the police of Ceuta. Now, rather than addressing the invaders, the police of Ceuta begin beating the residents of Ceuta with their nightsticks.
Sal, por favor, sal. Salí que tenés que morir de cáncer, perro. Bonita, por favor. Y me va a reventar esto, tú me esperas. ¡Hijo de puta! Esto no es más gente española. La gente española.
Now, I saw this in the chat. Somebody had said they get what they voted for. Spain is a monarchy. So there is a king of Spain, and the prime minister of Spain, who is the socialist, he's not elected by the people. He's actually chosen by a group called the Congress of Deputies. Now, I'm not totally educated on the full government structure of Spain, but I don't think that the Congress of Deputies is necessarily choosing what the people want. It's so they have a parliament there. It's multi-housed. It's, the Congress of Deputies. If I had to guess, if I had to make an equivocation to American politics, I would say that it's probably like the House of Representatives. But, they also have a political liberal elite class there. And I don't know that they have an election system that's secure. If I had to guess, I would say that they are dealing with the same problems that we're dealing with over here. So I don't feel comfortable blaming the citizens of Spain for what is happening to them. Undoubtedly, they have an entrenched socialist class which is looking for something like this to happen. They want these migrants to come here, and they want to give them the power to vote, because they want socialism to succeed. And that's largely due to the fact that Spain has had a complicated history with politics. At one time, in the 1930s, there was a right-wing government that took over, and they were a fascist government for some time. And I only use the term right-wing to distinguish from the communist left that they have there. Doesn't mean that they were anything like us. But the Franco regime was brutal in Spain, and during that time, there were killings, there were disappearances. It was a brutal dictatorship. They were aligned with Italy and with Nazi Germany, and that was largely a response to the socialism that they had previously. So Spain has had these sort of major swings, and they've been pushing farther and farther to the left for some time. But I don't know that this is anything like what the citizens of Spain thought that they were going to have. Now, also, we do have some of these people who have made the decision to leave Ceuta because they've been unable to steal food. They've been unable to find shelter. This is a very small region, and they have quickly overwhelmed the native population. So you've had some of these people decide to go back across the border. I have no way of telling you how many that is, but I can tell you that it's not enough. You've got a lot of people who are sticking behind, but when they leave Ceuta, this is the condition they're leaving it in. And I just want you to look at the filth and the trash. There appears to be a lot of brown stuff on the street. If I had to guess, I would say that's probably human poop. Now, you've got some that are leaving, but you've got even more that appear to be staying. Look at that. This was a pretty nice place before. Absolutely disgusting. Terrible, terrible, terrible for the people who live there. Now, you know, here's a clip. This is in Spanish, but we'll be able to translate for you. But this is a woman, a Spanish woman, who lives in Ceuta, and she's being interviewed by the media. They have the same problem with the media that we have. I saw another clip, and I didn't pull it up, but it was a female anchor standing on the beach, and she was talking about all of the women and children, the refugees that were coming over from Morocco. And in the background, you can see there are no women, there are no children. If there are children, they're male children. And it's just mostly a bunch of grown adult military-aged men. And at some point, they actually come and take over the camera. They keep trying to get seen on camera, and she's doing her best to cover it up so that people in Spain won't see that these are actually men and not women and children. But this woman is being interviewed, and she breaks down in tears as she's being interviewed. And she says, today it was Melilla. I'm sorry, she's not in. I don't know where she is. If she's in Melilla or, well, it says that they're in Ceuta on the screen. But she says, today it was Melilla. Tomorrow it will be the Canary Islands. The day after it will be Tarifa. This is an invasion. And she just starts crying. And you've got all of these Moroccan men who are standing behind her, linked arm in arm, just watching her cry.
Como mujer, esto es para vivirlo. Esto es una invasión. Han empezado por Ceuta, pero esto es la frontera a España, la frontera a Europa. Hoy ha sido Melilla, mañana será Canarias, pasado será Tarifa. De verdad, es que no hay derecho.
He's like making fun of her.
Lorena, la verdad que ahora estamos en un momento muy complicado.
Como mujer.
So yeah, this is. I don't think this is what the people of Spain universally asked for in any respect. All right. Now, I mentioned that the military had come in. The military set up on the beach, theoretically, to block any additional migrants from coming across the border at the beach. And they are woefully outnumbered. They can't stop them. You know, there's a handful of people in uniform, and there's also quite a few, looks like Spanish police. They're saying don't. They're saying turn around, stop. But there's too many of them. They can't stop them. So the military is essentially neutered as well, in the same way as the police. You know, as we learned yesterday, a lot of these guys are criminals. A lot of them are wanted for murder in other European countries. They're wanted for murder in their home country of Morocco. They are coming here because they were essentially told that they would not be kicked out. So that gun is totally worthless because, of course, they're not using it on anybody. Now, these guys who are standing here are actually heeding the words of these military guards. They've got them kind of cordoned off here, but of course, you've got other guys who are just going around. I mean, why wouldn't you? Yeah, I mean, for what reason would you have to follow the advice? Now, of course, the title of the show was that the EU has fallen and Spain is being quarantined. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, who has had to deal with her own migration issues, and she's been pretty hard-lined on this since she came to power. She is suspending something called the Schengen with Spain. This is essentially a region within the EU where EU countries do not have to come in. So if you're a citizen of Spain and you come to Italy, you don't have to get a visa. You don't have to do anything special. You can just move across the borders. Well, because of how crazy it is right now in Spain with all of these Moroccans coming over, it's clear that the borders have failed. It's clear that the Spanish government is completely unprepared to deal with the thousands, tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of Moroccans and North Africans that are coming over. And the open borders experiment of the Spanish government is a complete and utter failure. So they're totally overwhelmed. The border is absolute chaos. The entirety of Ceuta appears to be in absolute chaos. And with all of these people coming across the border and no way to tell exactly how many there are, other European nations are shutting down this Schengen so that they can essentially protect their own citizens. Now, it's not only Italy. I believe Finland and Sweden. Finland is better than Sweden, but Sweden has its own problems as well. So both of those nations have also agreed to suspend Schengen travel arrangements with Spain so that they can stop these people from then coming to their countries and then setting up shop as well. Now, Meloni put out this statement when these videos started coming out. The images coming from Ceuta are striking and demonstrate once again that uncontrolled illegal immigration poses a concrete threat to the security of Europe's borders. I have spoken with Interior Minister Matteo Pianetezzo. Italy will not stand by and watch. We are convening the relevant bodies, and following these meetings, we are prepared to intervene with extraordinary measures to defend the borders and the safety of our citizens, including the suspension of the Schengen area with Spain. On illegal immigration, we will not yield an inch. Defending the borders, stopping human traffickers, and ensuring effective repatriations will continue to be the line of this government. Now, Meloni's government is reportedly considering temporarily reinstating checks on travelers arriving from Spain. It sounds like that is actually what's happened now. Now, these proposals to suspend this Schengen are essentially an admission that the open borders experiment of the European Union has completely failed. Even Ursula von der Leyen, who is like the sort of head of the European Union, she has also said the exact same thing. Italian Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani immediately backed this proposal. He said, I'm in favor of closing the Schengen area with Spain, warning that the irregular and uncontrolled immigration represents a danger to national security. He also blasted Madrid's mass regularization policy, which is the amnesty I mentioned earlier, adding that it encourages additional human trafficking. ANSA reported that Tajani expressed full confidence in the interior minister. Ceuta and Melilla, both Spanish territories located in the northern African coast, are, of course, what we are discussing. This is only a matter of time before they cross the Strait of Gibraltar and then enter into Spain proper. Let me say thank you very much once again to Trisha and Teresa and to BDR1776. Denise Ann says, Zach, that part of Spain is actually attached to Morocco. Yes, and you must have said that before I said it. Bowler Jack Bryan, thank you, sir, for the $50 rant. You, sir, are a scholar and a gentleman. He says, thank you, Zach. As usual, you are the best. Have a great weekend. I appreciate you, buddy. Patty Nine Fingers says, so the police can't deal with the immigrants because there are too many of them. However, the citizens' sheep don't realize their power in numbers. They are well-trained and conditioned. Yes, that is absolutely correct. And then Patty Nine Fingers says, I could literally stop this invasion with one AR and a bunch of ammo and, of course, immunity. Yes. I don't know why they aren't doing this. I guess because they're too pussified and they don't want to be seen, with a bloodbath on their hands. M. the Painter says, modern feminism. 1, feminism of the men. Step 2, welcome in any toxic masculized men you can get your hands on. That is true. Filter Dog, I wonder what NGOs are behind the invasion. Absolutely. I think that will probably be investigated. We watch this all the time, Drunk Pinata. We watch this all the time at Drunk Pinata. I don't know what you're referring to. Curious Cat, thank you for the cookie. And Del Bercier, thank you for the ship, sir. I appreciate it. All right. Now, President Trump has announced once again in a direct commentary on the failure of United Nations that his Board of Peace has reached an agreement for the complete disarmament of Hamas. This agreement has been reached, and all other armed groups in Gaza will also be giving up all of their weapons. According to Axios, Hamas is expected to sign President Trump and the Board of Peace's declaration in the coming days. And the Board of Peace, which he heads and chairs, will be running the Gaza Strip, as according to his 20-point Gaza peace plan that was released last September. This comes amid continued fighting between Israel and Hamas in Gaza since the collapse of the ceasefire, and there has been video showing Israeli forces launching airstrikes against mosques and civilian areas in Gaza. And the IDF, of course, says that mosque is used as one of the weapon storage facilities. Now that Hamas has agreed to give up all weapons, there will be no need or excuse for the IDF to continue bombing in this area. And let's go ahead and watch some of that airstrike. Yeah, that sure looked like it was into a tent city to me. Man, the thing about all of these conflicts in the Middle East is that everything is secondhand, and all we ever see are these videos, which are grainy and could just as easily be made with AI. I don't even know. Anyways, President Trump said on Truth Social, today the Board of Peace reached a historic agreement for the complete disarmament of Hamas and all other armed groups in Gaza. This is a monumental step towards lasting peace and security. This is a major milestone in the implementation of the Trump 20-point plan. The agreement will be carried out in carefully structured phases. As disarmament is completed, Israeli forces will withdraw, and the International Stabilization Force will work with a new Palestinian police force to take responsibility of Gaza being safe for its residents and neighbors. Now, of course, Israel is not too keen on this idea. They appear to be skeptical of Hamas's commitment to disarming, and Israeli forces under the agreement will withdraw to the yellow line in the Gaza Strip, and any further withdrawal will be contingent on Hamas's total disarmament. This is a good deal for Israel because it takes care of the Gaza problem. A source involved with the negotiation said, if Hamas cheats, everything stops. Israel will not have to give up anything. President Trump put out his full statement on Truth Social, and he said 1 year ago there was a violent, raging war, humanitarian crisis, and hostages kept in brutal captivity. We have made historic progress, and there is still much work to do. I want to thank the mediators, Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey. All of these are nations, everybody should be aware, Israel wants to be at war with for their important efforts. They are also the countries which are going to be part of the International Stabilization Force, which will be present in Gaza. So once we get to that point, it's going to be very difficult for any additional conflict to be taking place. And under this agreement, Gaza will finally be in the hands of a new Palestinian government that serves its people. Congratulations to all on this amazing development that everybody said could never be achieved. President Donald J. Trump. All right. Now, also, it appears that President Trump and the State Department have struck a deal between Lebanon and Israel. So that means that the ongoing and continuous strikes by the Israeli government into Lebanon, which oftentimes is destroying historic Christian sites, villages that have been present in this region for quite literally thousands of years, and it will no longer happen. So here is Marco Rubio mentioning exactly what that means.
The second thing is we had an unprecedented ministerial. 60 countries came to Washington and were a part of an effort where we were shedding light on far left terrorism and violence. You know, the bomb goes off somewhere and it's tied to some right-wing group, or what I don't consider neo-Nazis right-wing, I consider them Nazis, right? But you're going to get a lot of attention on that. But if it's a leftist group, an Antifa group, that gets no coverage, or they ignore the ideological spin and the ideological reason behind it. So we got 60 countries came up here and hopefully creating a strong to go after far left violent terrorism and go after it, call it by name. And I think we're building a very strong coalition there. We've had some successes in the Middle East, Mr. President, as you know, in the diplomatic front. The deal with Lebanon and Israel is unprecedented. President Ayoun was here a week ago. I think that was the first visit by a Lebanese president in over 30 some odd years. In fact, this is the first time the Israelis and the Lebanese government have spoken at the official level in close to 30 years. And that was 60 years later. A lot of work to be done to keep that peace and build on. But it's a real achievable. And of course, as you announced last night, Mr. President, this disarmament deal that you brought about with Steve and Jared's work on Hamas is another big step as well. It's something a lot of people thought would never happen. It needs to happen, but the fact they've even agreed to it is a real achievable. Last point is on the Western Hemisphere. For the first time in 15, 20 years, the overwhelming majority of the countries in the Western Hemisphere are now led by pro-American leaders and pro-American governments. It's an extraordinary achievement. All of it happening through virtually every election that's happened in the world. If you were elected president, has elected someone who is American. And I think this is an incredible situation. And last but not least, and I have to thank a number of agencies here, particularly the Department of War, after that terrible earthquake in Venezuela, within 36 hours, the full force of the American government was on the ground providing humanitarian assistance. It was a sight to behold. The USS Ford, I think, was in their port. Our Marines and armed service personnel were helping run their airport and their tower. It is one of the fastest, most dramatic, and most effective humanitarian responses, certainly in recent history, if not ever. And they came at the direction of the president. In fact, within an hour of that earthquake hitting, I remember because I was overseas, the president called and said, make sure we go in there and help these people recover from this. And
all right. And NF, I agree with you. I don't want the U.S. to be involved in any other nation militarily or, having to prop them up. But what President Trump has done, what he's attempted to achieve, is to bring peace and stability to all of these regions that have traditionally been fraught with war and tension. And when there is peace around the world, there is nothing for the U.S. to ever get drawn into ever again. And what Marco Rubio mentioned there, how all of these governments in the Western Hemisphere are now allies of the United States, now pro-American governments, that means that we are going to be in a very, very unique time where an unprecedented level of peace and stability is going to rule in the Western Hemisphere, and the United States government is essentially going to be there to make sure that everything remains peaceful and we have this economic cooperation. Everybody can trade, everybody can purchase each other's goods and services, and it's going to be a state of economic prosperity that I don't think we've ever been able to even consider here. All right. Now, this is also very interesting. President Trump, during the course of this cabinet meeting today, also spoke to reporters about what he believes is a cyber attack in Minnesota that many have attempted to place at the feet of the Iranians. But rather than taking the bait, President Trump said that Governor Tim Walz is actually the one that we need to be blaming. So this was a reported cyber attack that targeted the water systems in at least 7 states this week, but Minnesota was chief among them. And according to CBS, more than 30 water systems across Minnesota were actually impacted. Multiple federal agencies are currently investigating the cause, but the New York Times reported that Iran is the suspect, of course, because we're in the midst of this conflict. Earlier in the cabinet meeting, President Trump briefly addressed the incident, and he kind of dismissed the notion that Iran was behind the attack. He said, today, I just want to mention, we heard in Minnesota there was a cyber attack and they blamed it on Iran. I don't think so. I blame it on Minnesota. Let's go ahead and hear that clip. Wow, Circle K is advertising.
Today, I just want to mention that we heard in Minnesota there was a cyber attack, and they blame it on Iran. I don't think so. I blame it on Minnesota because they're grossly incompetent. There was a cyber attack of 30 water plants, and I would blame it on Minnesota and the governor, the corrupt governor of Minnesota. They like to say, oh, it was Iran. Iran should be so lucky. Iran's got bigger problems than worrying about Minnesota.
Now, later, President Trump was asked, he was shouted at, asking a question from one of the members of the press about whether or not it was Iran that was behind it. And again, he went off on Tim Walz. He said, no, I think Minnesota was behind it. You know who's behind it? Minnesota, because they're grossly incompetent. I think the governor is behind it. I don't think there was an Iranian cyber attack. I think that Minnesota ought to get its act together. It's one of the worst run states. JD will tell you he found tremendous corruption in Minnesota. And by the way, they just gave me a report, massive future things having to do with corruption in Minnesota that are happening right now. So it sounds to me like JD Vance and the Anti-Fraud Division have discovered an even deeper undercurrent of corruption and criminal activity in Minnesota. And we're waiting to hear exactly what that might mean. So here is just before President Trump kicks the press out.
I think that Minnesota is behind it. You know who's behind it? Minnesota, because they're grossly incompetent. I think the governor's behind it. I don't think there was an Iranian cyber attack. I think that Minnesota ought to get its act together. It's one of the worst run states. JD will tell you. He found tremendous corruption in Minnesota. Yes, sir. And by the way, just gave me a report. Massive future things having to do with corruption in Minnesota are happening right now. Thank you.
Have you talked to Senator?
Ooh, I can only imagine what they have caught little Timmy Walz doing this time. Patty Ninefingers said, I would have loved to have heard him say, and unlike Haiti, we are not stealing Venezuelan children.
Report. Massive.
Okay, that's the same clip. I had it twice. Okay. All right. Now, thank you to No Thanks Joe, who says, happy Friday, Zach and Lisa. Love your work. Have a great weekend. God bless and be safe all. Thank you for that, Joe. Also, Sean Joe, thank you for the can. Appreciate it. All right. Now, early this morning, first thing, right around 6:30 or 6:03 rather, President Trump woke up. He was probably already awake. He wakes up at about 4 a.m. Anyways, the first thing he did was lay into John Cornyn and Tom Tillis. He said, John Cornyn never had a problem with the so-called fund, which will not benefit me, but rather the great American patriots who were hunted down like dogs and whose lives were unfairly and illegally destroyed by the crooked Joe Biden administration, until after I decided to endorse and support his Republican primary opponent in Texas, who easily won the nomination for the United States Senate. Perhaps there has never been a group of people treated so badly in our nation's history. They are suffering still, many ruined, and I felt that they should be given compensation for what has been done to them. I gave up payments for myself, which would have been substantial, including for the illegal and unprecedented raid on Mar-a-Lago, my home in Florida, even though many legal experts and others, including John Cornyn, said it was a shocking and disgusting display of weaponization against me. Such an event has never happened before and hopefully will never happen again. I will always feel that these victims of government abuse should be paid back for what they were forced to endure. Their lives have been ruined. Millions of people are with me, as was proven in my landslide presidential win, where this was a major subject of debate, and so did John Cornyn until he lost his election to an opponent that I endorsed. Todd Blanche, a good man, should be immediately approved as U.S. Attorney General. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, it would appear that, of course, that is not going to happen. Now, President Trump continued to expound upon his feelings on John Cornyn and the obstruction that he and Tom Tillis are using to stop Todd Blanche from able to become the Attorney General. And here he is at the cabinet meeting.
Would you still want the acting Attorney General?
Well, I'm talking about the weaponization against large numbers of people in our country by the Biden administration and by Obama, but by the Biden administration in particular in this case. But large numbers of people, their lives have been ruined, they've been destroyed, their families have been, decimated. They've gone to prison for no reason whatsoever. There's never been a group of people, most likely, I can think of a couple that were treated pretty badly, groups, but there's essentially never been a group of people treated so badly as these people. And this fund was not for me. This fund was for those people that have been weaponized, that have been abused. Now, I was abused. They attacked my house, Mar-a-Lago, where I live. And I was, big damages should have been given to me. I don't want anything. I'm not talking about myself. I think that there's a group of people in this country, history will show, that were treated like nobody else has ever been treated. So badly, so horribly. Their families have been ruined. Many, many suicides. They've committed suicide. People that were very successful that wanted to go to a rally or an event and ended up spending the rest of their lives in horror. No? So, you can say what you want about the fund, and they've agreed to not have a fund. But there are a lot of people that are very upset about it. A lot of Republican people, a lot of Democrat people are very upset about it. A lot of people were covered. I wasn't covered by that fund. I don't want to be covered by the fund. I probably was abused more than anybody in the history of our country. But I wasn't looking for that. But there were a lot of people. And I'll tell you something, Todd Blanche is a very, very good man. And he shouldn't be in the middle of this. He should get approved, because you will never get anybody like him. You're never going to get anybody. And to make him a pawn in this whole thing, this is being done by a senator. And I don't really blame him, to be honest with you. I endorsed his opponent. And as soon as I endorsed his opponent went through the roof, and he won the primary election in Texas for the Senate. And the man that lost, the man that I didn't endorse, has become very angry. And that's okay. I understand that. I probably would do the same thing. One other truth, I think I'd do the same thing.
Okay, so Little Peachy, everything that you're upset about not having happened yet is quite literally the fault of Congress. President Trump has made unprecedented changes and moves to restructure things, to get America back into a position where we can be successful going into the future. And this isn't about a short-term fix, okay? This has to be about lasting change for the United States of America, so that what we saw happen because of the deep state and then Joe Biden and the deep state, which frankly still is entrenched inside the federal government, that has to be rooted out. But the lasting changes that people want to see, or the structural changes that people want to see, President Trump can't just do that on his own. It has to be done through the mechanisms that we have prescribed in the Constitution, which are legislative actions by Congress. All right, President Trump can write as many executive orders as he wants, but we've all seen any executive orders immediately get challenged in court. And then we have the issue of judges on the federal bench who have lifetime appointments, by the way. Okay, that is an incredibly difficult thing to overcome. But the only thing that can overcome it is impeachment by Congress. Okay, and as we've seen, they've been unable to do these things. Now, if it was me, if it was you, maybe you would have a little bit harder of an approach. There's a lot of blackmail out there in Washington, D.C. If it was me, I would probably tell these people in Congress, you either do this or we're going to destroy your life. But of course, President Trump isn't doing that. I don't know. Maybe there are other mechanisms that we are not seeing. But there is a lot that has changed, a lot that has been rooted out. A lot of that rot has been cut out of Washington, D.C. The nonprofit industrial complex has been decimated. The Democrat Party is in negative territory. All right. But it is the Senate that has not followed through because those positions are largely held by deep state activists. Let me say thank you to Principled Enigma, who says, happy August, Zach and Lisa. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Patty Ninefinger said he should make it $10 billion. Well, it would have to be, again, the DOJ that would be making that, and the IRS that would be setting that, that fund. And of course, that's not going to happen until after Tillis and Cornyn are gone. And then Patty Ninefinger say, I might start paying taxes again. All right. Now, elections. Okay. Also, President Trump, I mean, I don't think that anybody can deny that President Trump has been attempting to get these changes made. He's been attempting to get these things fixed. At the same time, he's also been exposing these people, and, you know, the public is angry. All right. I would argue, and I've always argued, that one of the best ways that we have to address these things are to wake up the vast majority of people. People have to be pissed off enough to be willing to do something about this, to be willing to take action in their own community. Now here, Joel Smith at CBS asks Secretary of Pennsylvania Schmidt, he oversees the voter rolls, a question. He asks him, if non-citizens end up voting in November, are you prepared to be held criminally liable by the Department of Justice? Now, you've also heard my take on this. The DOJ, Harmeet Dillon, and President Trump, they have set these people up to take the fall. They have set them up for criminal prosecution because we know that they are not cleaning the voter rolls. We know that illegal aliens are on those voter rolls. In order to charge them with crimes, we have to have proof of that crime, and we have to have their consciousness of guilt. And we have created that consciousness of guilt through the actions that have been taken. Here is Secretary of State Schmidt answering that question. He is one of those people that will, of course, be breaking the law.
In Pennsylvania.
The U.S. Department of Justice sent letters to all 50 U.S. states warning that election officials could face criminal charges for allowing non-citizens to remain on their lists of eligible voters. So if something like that happens here, if non-citizens end up voting in November, are you prepared to be held maybe criminally liable by the Department of Justice after that warning?
Well, I don't know their mind, but I can only assume the letter was intended to be threatening, but I don't feel the least bit threatened. I'm confident in the integrity of our elections. The letter also demanded that Pennsylvania turn over not just its publicly available voter rolls, but the Social Security numbers and driver's license numbers of all registered voters in Pennsylvania. That is not legal. So we declined their demand. As did many other states, red and blue alike. And as of earlier this week, the 17th federal court decision came down, siding with the states against the Department of Justice.
Well, that's not going to help you if or when you allow illegal aliens to vote in your elections. There's a very specific reason why they want those Social Security numbers. They want to know if they're tax ID numbers. That's exactly why they want those driver's licenses. They want to know if those people are citizens. And in the state of Pennsylvania, you guys give driver's licenses to non-citizens. Here's an example. Right here in the United States of America, a 63-year-old British citizen has just pled guilty to illegally voting in the 2020 federal election and falsely claiming U.S. citizenship when she registered to vote in Texas. Her name is Ada Ngozi Otuka, and she voted in 2012, 2016, 2018, and the 2024 elections, despite the fact that she was not a U.S. citizen. She is going to be sentenced on November 5th, and potential penalties of up to 5 years for the false citizenship claim, and then 1 year for illegal voting. And then, of course, if she goes to prison, she would then be deported thereafter. In the state of Texas, they've turned over their voter rolls, so that is already being alleviated, and there should no longer have to be something that we worry about. Now, also, J.D. Vance at the cabinet meeting today announced an additional $750 million in fraud discoveries. Again, you have to be able to investigate and find these things so that these people can be prosecuted.
Just today, Mr. President, we will announce 17 new anti-fraud actions that will total about $1/3 billion, and that's added to the $230 billion that we've already uncovered. And I want to just talk for the benefit of the American people about why do we care so much about this? Because what I always try to remind people is that fraud has two victims. So to give one concrete example, there is a program that is administered by Medicaid, and that program ensures that low-income moms and low-income babies have access to neonatal care. Now, I think most Americans probably share my view that this is one of the great things about the United States of America, that if we see a baby and we see a young mother that requires help, we help our fellow Americans. That's a good thing. It's something that we should be proud of. And yet, there is a program that has defrauded the moms and the babies who benefit from these. You've gotten people who've gotten rich by setting up false companies that are providing false services. So who loses in that equation? Number one, of course, is the American taxpayer that is $230 billion poorer because of the fraud that this country has let go on. But I actually think most importantly is that we've seen that program run out of money. So we've seen moms and babies unable to access the health care that they need because the fraudsters have gotten rich. That is a disgrace. And until the president ordered us to stop it, no one was doing anything about it. So we've made a lot of progress, Mr. President, in just under a year. But we're going to keep on working at it because we believe the American people deserve to have their money spent as you and the Congress have directed it.
There's big numbers here, finding tremendous numbers. They look like Elliot Ness. Does anybody know who they are? They look like that group of people you have lined up behind you. They're doing a great job.
Yes, sir.
Billions, think of not millions, billions of dollars is being covered. Billions. And you haven't seen anything yet. We have things happening that people aren't going to believe. The level of corruption and fraud that took place under the Biden administration was unprecedented. And Minnesota, California, Maine, believe it or not. You think of Maine as this wonderful place.
Yep.
It's the level of corruption is incredible, all over. So, great job. Thank you very much.
So, in my opinion, in order to go after the people at the highest levels, they have to establish this pattern of behavior with regular citizens. And they've done that, I think, pretty spectacularly. I would guess that what President Trump was hinting at in regards to Minnesota earlier is going to be related to this, because we know that people within the government were engaging in this behavior, were not only tolerating this behavior, but were actually ensuring that it would take place. And that's what I want to see too. I want to see the people who are in charge getting in trouble for this stuff. But you have to be able to draw that connection, and you have to be able to prove it, because otherwise it means nothing if these people get charged and then it's a hollow indictment. Thank you to Streamweaver for gifting a subscription on Rumble to CNS 1000. Correct. Congratulations. All right. Now, we have some new information about the Democrat Party and some additional corruption taking place there. So, of course, they lecture us about workers' rights and how people aren't getting paid enough. Well, at the same time, they're lining their pockets and they're engaging in all of this fraud and NGO fraud, Medicare fraud, welfare fraud, all of these things. But it turns out that the DNC is funneling millions of dollars in payroll expenditures through a company that's actually been accused by former employees of withholding their wages and actually retaliating against workers who attempt to take legally mandated family or medical leave. So libs of TikTok brought this to the attention of the internet. The DNC and Act Blue are running all their payments through a sketchy payroll company who were sued by multiple employees for allegedly withholding their pay. The DNC always likes to position itself as a champion of workers' rights, but then at the end of the day, they're just a corrupt organization.
Then just last month, another former Rippling employee sued the company again, saying he was retaliated against and eventually fired for, once again, taking parental leave. Now, the complaint in that case called Rippling's conduct baseless, vile, and contemptible under any reasonable standard of human decency. Now, in addition to the parental leave allegations, Rippling was also sued by multiple former employees last year over allegedly withholding wages and overtime pay in violation of California's labor laws. Now, here's why all this matters and where it gets even more interesting. The Democrat Party's top institutions run their payroll programs using Rippling, including the DNC and, of course, ActBlue, both of which appear to have switched payroll software to Rippling since last year. So they've reported, all of these political committees, more than $38.5 million in payments to Rippling, including more than $24 million in the 2026 cycle. So that includes payroll expenditures routed through Rippling, not all direct vendor payments. But it just illustrates the depth and the dependence of the entire Democrat political ecosystem on the Rippling platform and company. And it's just, I mean, it shouldn't shock you that the Democrats have a double standard.
No, not at all. So who is she talking about? Rippling. It's a payroll vendor, kind of like an ADP, but they're based in San Francisco. They do human resources and payroll software development, and it's operated by another company called People Center Incorporated. So the Washington Free Beacon had done an investigation citing Federal Election Commission records, and the DNC and ActBlue processed approximately $23.3 million in payroll through Rippling during the 2026 election cycle. And those records show that both the DNC and ActBlue began using Rippling during the second quarter of 2025. I wonder if there was a quid pro quo that was taking place there to get them to switch over. But this Democrat money machine has this large back catalog of disturbing employee allegations. There was a former manager for Rippling, David Bahar. He's the one who filed the lawsuit in California back in February. And he alleged that the company terminated him immediately after he exercised his legal right to take leave so that he could bond with his newborn child. His 54-page complaint accuses Rippling of interfering with his rights under the California Family Rights Act, retaliating against him for taking leave, wrongfully terminating him, and then failing to prevent discrimination and retaliation. Another former engineering manager, Fu Zhu, made similar allegations in a separate lawsuit that was filed in March of last year. Zhu said she was fired after taking medical leave for in vitro fertilization treatments. And according to her complaint, the male employee who replaced her was also terminated shortly thereafter. He intended to take his own family medical leave. Rippling has a pattern of bias against employees who exercise their rights to take family and medical leave, Zhu wrote in the lawsuit. The dispute was then later directed to arbitration, where proceedings are never put out into the public. Rippling also faces a proposed class action lawsuit filed by another former employee who alleged that the company maintained a policy of requiring workers to perform uncompensated work off the clock. That complaint further alleges Rippling failed to pay certain wages and overtime and improperly withheld their paid sick leave. The case was also moved to arbitration, so we don't know how it was adjudicated. Of course, Rippling denies any wrongdoing, and an attorney representing the company told the Free Beacon that Rippling could not discuss pending litigation, but emphasized that the company has never settled a family or medical leave violation claim and has never been found liable for such a violation by a court or a jury. So the allegations remain all unsolved, and no court has determined that Rippling is liable for any of this alleged conduct, but that has not stopped Democrat governors from handing the company massive tax incentives. California Governor Gavin Newsom awarded Rippling an approximately $12.7 million in tax credits in 2023 so they could expand their San Francisco headquarters. New York Governor Kathy Hochul's administration followed that up by granting another $7 million in incentives so they could grow their operations in New York City. And these are the same Democrat leaders who publicly present themselves as champions of family leave for their employees. No one should ever have to choose between a paycheck and caring for their newborn child, Kathy Hochul said, unless apparently the allegations involve a company handling millions of dollars for the DNC and ActBlue. The revelations come at the same time that ActBlue remains buried under congressional scrutiny over their fraud prevention practices and handling of potentially illegal foreign donations. I would really like to know what's up with the DOJ on that. That investigation, of course, remains ongoing. And I'm sure you'll remember that much like Dr. Anthony Fauci, the CEO of ActBlue, Regina Wallace-Jones, also chose to invoke the Fifth Amendment 22 times during a House hearing where she was being asked about those fraudulent donations and the fraudulent misrepresentations they made to Congress in previous depositions. Now, Americans are learning that the Democrat fundraising machine and the DNC have routed tens of millions of dollars in payroll expenses through a vendor facing serious allegations from their own former workers, and it seems like business as usual. Now, Virginia has just announced that they have canceled 6,531 non-citizen voter registrations. These are, just like New Jersey, non-citizens who were able to get onto the voter rolls. Now, Virginia entered into a settlement with leftist groups to pause the program where they scour for illegals on the voter rolls to remove these declared non-citizens for a 90-day period before federal elections. Of course, after that 90-day period elapses after the election, then theoretically they would go back in and start removing people. But you can see on a county-wide basis, it appears that Fairfax County, which I'm pretty sure is the largest county in Virginia, seems to have the largest number of non-citizens on the voter rolls by a factor of at least 2. Prince William County seems to have a fair number as well. But that's, again, a win, getting nearly the same number of people that were removed in New Jersey removed from the Virginia voter rolls. Now, speaking of New Jersey Governor Mickey Sherrill, after announcing that all of these illegal aliens were on the voter rolls and non-citizens were on the voter rolls, she is now offering taxpayer-funded legal services to the illegals who illegally voted in the elections. So she says here, do you believe you were mistakenly registered to vote as a result of a transaction at the MVC between June of 23 and June of 24? Do you believe your voter registration has been deactivated in error? Please read the information below, which includes important next steps to take. And it provides pro bono legal services. New Jersey's Detention and Deportation Defense Initiative. If you know a New Jersey resident who has been detained by ICE and needs legal support, you can complete this form, and then New Jersey will pay for them to have a lawyer. Wonderful. Rather than helping the citizens of America who live in New Jersey, they are helping illegal aliens. All right. Unfortunately, the Kansas Supreme Court has rejected efforts to enforce Election Day mail-in ballot deadlines. This was an overwhelming win for the people who want to steal elections in Kansas. It's a 5-2 decision. The Kansas Supreme Court declined to intervene and restore the state's new strict mail-in ballot deadline, which leaves in place a lower court order that allowed mail-in ballots received up to 3 days after Election Day to be counted. This, of course, is not good for people who want to make sure that elections in Kansas are safe, secure, and that ballots cannot be injected. It was an effort by Republican Secretary of State Scott Schwab and Attorney General Chris Kobach that was attempting to ensure that ballots for the August 4th primary must be received by Election Day. Kansas lawmakers exercised their constitutional authority and actually passed Senate Bill 4 back in 2025. That measure eliminated that 3-day grace period that's been in place since 2017, and it required advance voting ballots to arrive by 7 p.m. on Election Day. But Democrat Governor Laura Kelly vetoed the bill, and the Republican-controlled legislature overrode her. So the change restored the traditional Election Day receipt deadline that Kansas has actually used for the last 150 years. But of course, left-wing groups, including the Kansas Appleseed Center for Law and Justice, Loud Light, and Disability Rights Center of Kansas, immediately sued. They claimed the straightforward deadline somehow violated the state's constitution, equal protection, due process, and voting rights provisions. So on July 16th, after thousands of advance ballots had already been mailed with clear instructions they must be received by Election Day, Douglas County District Judge Carl Folsom granted a temporary injunction which reinstated the 3-day post-election window. Schwab appealed. The Court of Appeals refused to stay the injunction, and Schwab then sought emergency transfer and review from the Kansas Supreme Court. On Thursday, the High Court denied both requests without commenting on the merits, leaving the activists' lower court order intact for the primary and beyond while the underlying case continues. So there is a possibility this could be taken care of, but of course it's not going to happen before Election Day. This court denies both Secretary Schwab's emergency motion to transfer this appeal from the Court of Appeals and his emergency petition for review. The majority wrote, the temporary injunction may not ultimately survive appellate scrutiny, but it is not plainly erroneous. Justices Caleb Stegall and K.J. Wall Jr. issued a blistering dissent, warning that the majority's refusal to act would invite only suspicions about the integrity of our election outcomes. There are thousands of ballots at stake in this election. They are now going to be counted, but the ultimate legality will not be determined by this court until long after the results are announced. They called the result untenable and unacceptable. The dissent also argued that the lower courts ignored the state's interest in conducting elections under laws adopted by the elected legislature. The justices warned that under Senate Bill 4, counting ballots that missed the statutory deadline would dilute the votes of citizens who complied with the rules. Of course, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled 5-4 in June that federal law does not require mail-in ballots to be received by Election Day. Chief Justice John Roberts and Justice Amy Coney Barrett joined the court's 3 liberal justices in the majority. The ruling did, however, leave individual states free to establish their own ballot receipt deadlines, and Kansas lawmakers attempted to do that, exercising their authority by passing Senate Bill 4, only to have a district judge block it under the Kansas Constitution. And for now, Kansas ballots postmarked by Election Day may continue arriving and being counted for 3 additional days while the voters wait to learn who actually won their election. Thank you to Sean Joe for 2 cookies. Thank you to Filter Dog for a cookie. Where has Maxine Waters been for 4 months? I have not kept track on Maxine, so I don't know if she's shown up to Congress or not, or if she is just staying out of the limelight. Empress, thank you for the cookie. PDX Patriot says, am not dead. I just took lurking to a new level. An end of the month bump for you. Thank you, sir, for those 1,022 gold pills. And then Sean Joe, thank you for the cookie as well. All right, now let's take a look at Arizona. Katie Hobbs has announced that she will not be debating Republican candidate Andy Biggs in an upcoming debate that was scheduled. She previously refused to participate in her primary and general election debates back in 2022 before stealing the election from Kari Lake. So it's no surprise that she does not want to be put on the spot by somebody who is likely more intelligent than her and also has got better policy positions. So in a statement, Katie Hobbs' campaign manager, Nicole DeMott, said, we respectfully decline debate invitations in this campaign because face-to-face engagements with Arizonans is more effective than a stage designed for short sound bites and political theater. DeMont went on to say that Hobbs has done more than 100 open press events, so therefore she's exempt from the tradition of defending her candidacy on the debate stage. Hobbs' team issued a similar statement amid the controversy during the last election cycle. She blamed the circumstances surrounding the debate then when she refused to square off against Kari Lake. Debating a conspiracy theorist like Kari Lake, whose entire campaign platform is to cause enormous chaos and make Arizona the subject of national ridicule, would only lead to constant interruptions, pointless distractions, and childish name-calling, Hobbs said at that last election. Arizonans deserve so much better than Kari Lake, and that's why we're confident Katie Hobbs will be elected as our next governor. Drew Sexton, who is a senior advisor to Andy Biggs, slammed Katie Hobbs in a statement, highlighting her past corruption scandals and noting that Biggs will still participate in the scheduled debate. Katie Hobbs is also, don't forget, under investigation stemming from significant donations made to the Democrat Party and a dark money group that was used for Hobbs's inaugural events, potentially influencing state contract decisions. She took $400,000 from a company, which then later made millions in return as Katie Hobbs became governor and made decisions that affected them positively in a financial respect. Sexton responded, the independent and persuadable voters up for grabs in Arizona deserve to hear from statewide candidates in a traditional debate setting, one that was held in every Arizona gubernatorial race since 1954, until Katie Hobbs ran for the position in 2022. Every other statewide Democrat in 22 and 24 decided to debate in the general election, but Katie Hobbs thinks the rules don't apply to her. That may be why she's also under criminal investigation for corruption and why she's already been publicly rejected by the first choice for lieutenant governor. Whatever her reason is, it won't stop Andy Biggs from campaigning across the state and participating in the clean elections debate on October 6th to ask for the votes of every Arizonan of every background. Katie Hobbs can avoid the debate stage, but she won't get to avoid voters in November. Now, as I said, Katie Hobbs does not want to debate because she's not smart. She has all of these scandals. She's currently under criminal investigation. She won't be able to address any of those things on stage, and undoubtedly she would be questioned about them. Just last week, Katie Hobbs got blasted after she attempted to steal credit for state Republicans' no tax on tips budget proposal. Of course, that was originally influenced by President Trump's no tax on tips policy at the federal level. She said, here in Arizona, we eliminated taxes on tips so that service workers like the guys here at Chili Pepper in Yuma can keep every dollar they earn through tips. As families struggle with high costs because of Washington's misguided policies, I'm working to put more money in Arizonans' pockets. And we did just that with my fourth bipartisan balanced budget that cut taxes for hardworking families. Of course, she completely failed to mention that the Republican state legislature passed the provision as part of the 2026 budget. Of course, it had nothing to do with Katie Hobbs. Kitsko says Biggs should have an AI debate with canned Hobbs quotes on her side, citing when those quotes were made. I think he'll probably just get up there and call out all of her failures and highlight his own policy decisions because they're undoubtedly going to be better than Katie Hobbs. I like Andy Biggs. All right. Here is an interesting story that I felt compelled to mention. Graham Plattner had to drop out of the race for Senate in Maine because it turns out he is likely, according to the women who allege that he sexually assaulted them, a sexual assaulter. I don't have any evidence to show that, only the firsthand witness accounts of women who claim that he did that to them. Well, the guy they chose to replace him, Troy Jackson, turns out he married his cousin and he had kids with her. And he actually wrote on Twitter back in 2023, somebody said, name something that you can say about your spouse at Thanksgiving time. And he wrote, thank God my cousin came, or something like that. It was really, really odd. Anyways, this is not something you expect to see every day, but the current U.S. Senate candidate for Maine, the one who was appointed by the Democrats to replace Graham Plattner, Troy Jackson, married his second cousin and has 2 kids with her. Now, this is generally accepted to be a bad idea from a genetic pool standpoint. It's also weird because it's incest. But Steve Robinson, an investigative reporter for Maine, had posted this on Thursday. He said Jackson went to high school in Allagash, Maine, with his childhood sweetheart, his second cousin and future wife at Kent High School. Allagash has a population of 240, so there's not much of a selection in the area for those looking for love in rural Maine. Jackson, a 26-year politician and lobbyist, has made a career of bragging that he is a fifth-generation logger, and you don't have to go back far in his generational line to find where it crosses paths with the ancestors of his significant other, Lana M. Pelletier. Allagash tipsters and genealogical records confirm that Jackson's longtime significant other, Lana, his high school sweetheart and the mother of his 2 adult sons, Chase and Camden, is in fact his second cousin by blood. Jackson and Pelletier share the same great-grandparents, Thomas Pelletier and Edith Thibodeau. Thomas and Edith's daughter, Albertine, was Troy's grandmother. Their son, Louis Sr., was Lana's grandfather. That makes Troy and Lana second cousins on the Pelletier line. Troy Jackson was asked about dating advice in rural Allagash after the story broke, and he had no comments. All right. Let's jump on over to New York,
China,
where there has been a lot.
Quote, members of Mandani's DS.
There has been a lot of attention paid to the administration of Zoran Mamdani and the communists who make it up. Apparently, members of Mamdani's DSA government have taken a pledge to the Chinese government. What?
China. The New York Post reporting, quote, members of Mandani's DSA pledged to support and defend China. The pledge says, quote, survival of Chinese socialism is a crucial matter. Socialists' other promises, government subsidized housing, free college, Medicare for all, and a shorter work week, and abolishing ICE. Among other things. Hugh Hewitt, host of the Hugh Hewitt Show and Fox News contributor. Hugh, welcome to you. Good to have you on this morning. Now they're calling to support and defend China. How is it that this group, Democrat socialists, are getting this kind of support? This new CNN poll, I'll put it up on the screen, shows that a third of Democrats now identify as Democrat socialists.
So this is quite literally what we're up against. A third of those who identify as Democrats are socialists. It's also kind of hilarious because that's what the old wing of the Democrat Party is up against as well. Chuck Schumer was actually confronted by one of these people as he was giving a speech or a presser at the National Press Club in D.C. He was attempting to blame President Trump for actions of corruption, but he was interrupted by a heckler. So let's watch.
The product changes, the con stays the same. The presidency is supposed to be a public trust. Trump has turned it into the single most profitable scam of his. Please sit down. Please sit down.
Genocide. What can be more corrupt than backing genocide? This is part of the same con with you and Trump playing off of each other. Oh, he's worse. Oh, he's worse. You were put on notice in November of 2023 by the Center for Constitutional Rights and other legal and human rights organizations. Notice on potential legal liability for aiding, abetting, inciting, or conspiring to commit genocide for congressional acts and demand. You were put on notice, and you backed it, and you backed the genocide to the hilt for years on end.
I can't believe they're letting it go on this long.
Corruption. How dare you talk about corruption?
Thank you for your diatribe. Now, let's continue. Let's continue and let the people... The people didn't come to hear you.
You should be questioned about your diabolical record. It's amazing that you can show your genocidal face in public, Mr. Senator. Mr. Senator. Shame on public citizens for not allowing questions to this genocidal maniac. Shame, yeah. Corruption. What could be more corrupt than not allowing questions?
So basically, they had to find someone in the audience who disagreed with this guy before they could get him to leave. This, to me, is indicative of what the Democrats have created. They have fostered the relationships with these radical leftists. They have essentially allowed this to breed and to bubble up. And now they run the risk of having their own party taken over by the most radical and communistic element of this country. And at that point, what's going to happen? I mean, we can't allow those people to take over. I mean, they've already infected so many elements of the federal government. They have also been a part of bringing in all of these migrants in the same way they're doing right now in Ceuta. Now, take a look at this. The U.S. has 3 times more immigrants than any other country on earth. 1 in 6 immigrants on the planet live here in the United States. There are no other developed nations in the world that even come close to that. And that means that we are essentially giving our country away. We've got on record 52.4 million immigrants here in the United States. That is 17.2% of immigrants worldwide. 25% of all Mexicans in the world live in the U.S., and 70% of them rely on welfare. 10% of all Guatemalans live here, and 77% of them are on welfare. 12% of Nicaraguans live here, and 75% of them are on welfare. 12% of all Haitians live here, and 53% of them rely on welfare. The numbers don't lie. We're giving our country away. We cannot afford to continue allowing these people to move here. Immigration has got to be cut off. And, of course, they need to continue the efforts to dump these people outside of our borders, get them the hell out of our country. It's happening, but, of course, you just don't see it as much as you want to. Now, take a look at this. This is a personal story from an immigrant who came here on an opt visa. She said, "Today I'm crying because my STEM opt has been canceled after they issued me the EAD card because the company I'm with are based in India, and they only have a mailing address in the U.S., and none of them reside in the U.S. So she's working for a company that is based in India, but has a P.O. box here in the United States. That's a problem. That's not supposed to be happening, but apparently it's never actually been investigated before. So now USCIS audited this company, and they found that there's no office here in the United States. There's no employer locally in the United States. And when they figured that out, they contacted this girl and they said, your visa has been revoked and you need to leave in the next 30 days. She says, my journey in the U.S. is over, but I urge all of you to immediately move to employers who are legit and who are present in person in the U.S. and who have a physical desk where he sits in the U.S. So don't work for scammers because otherwise you might get kicked out. The consultancy earlier mentioned that they have an office, but they only had a mailing address and they were minting scores of rupees while jeopardizing careers of U.S. students that didn't lose anything. But as a student, I lost the American dream. Good. Go home. I never thought my journey would end like this. Please, please, I beg you, change your employers who are local and to who you can visit and meet in person. Google opt fraud or Google and see it yourself. My life has ended here, but I want to save all of you. I'm still in shock. My opt is revoked. So finally, USCIS is auditing these employers to make sure that they're real companies. And we should probably be seeing a lot more of this being reported in the future. All right. Now, this is an example of that 30% of completely brain dead, communist, ultra left-wing garbage that we have infecting the United States. And, of course, that suicidal empathy we saw on display in Soweto. So Nick Shirley sees this girl at NYU, and he's asking her about whether or not rapists should be imprisoned because she's one of those people who wants to abolish ICE, abolish prisons, abolish the Senate, et cetera, et cetera. You're never going to believe what she says. Maybe you will.
Let's just say somebody who has raped a woman.
Totally.
Would you like them to be out in the street?
I think my answer is yes, even though that's a challenging answer to say.
So if you got raped, would you like your rapist to be out in the street?
Well, let me finish. Because I have been raped, and they are out in the street. And I'm not sure, them going to jail is a solution to, whatever's going on inside their heart, or even my own heart that, contributed to that experience that I'm having. And I don't want more people to get raped, but I don't know for certain that going into a jail in the United States is going to shift anything inside of their operating system so that they'll make a different choice again.
Wow, well, thank you guys so much for your time. And is there one last message you'd like to give the people about the rise of communism or freeing the people inside the prisons?
Just free yourself from the own prison in your heart, and then maybe we can.
Moron! Absolute moron. I mean, I can't even imagine what is going on in these people's heads. It's insane. Principal Enigma says, how is what Mom Dami is doing not treason? Well, again, you have to prove it. I don't know. I don't know what to say there. All right, you guys, we'll go and leave with this story right here. Again, another fraudster, this time a Canadian woman down here in Florida. She was pulled over and she was arrested and she had 12 fake IDs on her. So the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office stopped this woman right here, Bryce Swanson, this week on Wednesday. And Swanson initially told deputies her name was Brianna Valenzuela. Well, deputies said she later admitted that that wasn't her real name and she didn't have an ID and that she never actually possessed a valid driver's license. But when they went a little bit deeper doing their investigation, they actually discovered in her vehicle 12 fake IDs. All of them had Swanson's picture, but they all had different names and different dates of birth. They said that she is a citizen of Canada. Obviously, she overstayed her visa, and she faces a charge of fraudulent use of personal information involving more than $5,000 or 10, but fewer than 20 victims. So she was booked on charges of not having a valid driver's license and giving a false name to law enforcement. And she is being held without bond because she has an ICE detainer hold. So she is going to be sent back to Canada. And let me just say, you can't fix her, so don't even try. All right. Thank you to Sean Joe for one more cookie. And thank you to G. Fontes, who said, had there been, say, an accident off the Spanish island coast and the water had a significant amount of blood in it, the sharks would surely be eager to help repel the invasion. Just a thought. Yep, absolutely. All right, guys. That's all I have for you today. I want to thank you all for being here. Hope you have a great weekend. Hopefully, I will see you back here on Monday at 5 p.m. for another episode of Red Pill News Live. Until that time, good luck and God bless.